Hello everybody, welcome back to another Blender Made Easy tutorial. Today we're going to be creating a leaf and we're going to be using a background texture, and then we're going to just model around it, apply the texture, add some materials and displacement and all this fun stuff, and then at the end we're going to go into Photoshop, add the background and just make it look better. Alright, so let's get started. Delete the cube and then add in your background image. This is an image I got off of CG Texture, so you can just go get that. Click, and let me go like this. Scroll down so you see background images, and then click Add Image, Open, and then just find it. Just give me a second if I can remember where I put it. Leaves, and I think it's this one right here. You can really use any texture that you want. I'm just going to be using this one. Okay, press 7 on the number pad and then press 5, and then you'll be able to see your texture. And I think I'm going to go for this one right here. So I'm just going to add in a plane and then move it over here, and then just start adding vertices and shaping it to this. Also, hold on, I want to rotate this background image so it goes up and down, because that will just be easier. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, negative 90, there we go, and then I'm just going to place the plane right there. I'm going to scale it up along the Y until it fits the entire thing, move it down a little bit, scale Y, perfect, just like that, and then go into edit mode and press Ctrl R and then just add a bunch of vertices. I'm going to go something like that, and then just press enter. Okay, so now we come up here and then we just click on both of these and slide them in, just like that. Place it right there. You can take your time with this. I'm sure there's an easier way. I'm just going to do one side for now. Just going like this, right click on it, GX, moving it across, GX, and then just do this till you get all the way down. And make sure, actually it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to make sure that the vertices are just in just a little bit on the leaf, so they're not like out here. Make sure they're in just a little bit. Okay, right click, move it in, right click, move it in, just like that. This should be good. Okay, that one's good, we don't need to move that one. And then just do it all the way around. So you guys know what to do. I'm going to forward this a little bit so it just saves some time in this tutorial. So going down and then go back up this way. Alright, there we go. I just finished it and I went through the whole thing, as you can see. So now what we're going to be doing is just modeling it a little bit and making it have a curve, and just it's going to be cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a solidify modifier so it just slightly, very slightly thickens the entire thing. So go to add modifier, solidify, and then I'm going to zoom in here, and this is a little too much. I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit, something like that. So it's got a little bit of thickness. Yeah, I think that's good. So now what I'm going to do is add a loop cut right down the middle. So press Ctrl R and then click, right click. So now there's a loop cut down the middle. And then I'm just going to bring this down to about there. Actually, wait, Control Z that, deselect the top one, and then deselect this one, and then bring it down a little bit. So then there's a little bit of curve in the whole thing. Now I'm going to add a subdivision surface so it gives it a nice look. There we go. And then we're going to go into press 3 on the number pad to go into side view. Press Z, box select this one, or this one, doesn't really matter. And then go and do proportional editing. You can do that by pressing O or coming down here and click enable. Make sure it's set to smooth, and then press G, Z, and then use your scroll wheel to thicken it or to make it smaller. I'm gonna go for something like that. I want a nice, good looking curve to my leaf. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Now I want to rotate it, so I'm going to press R and just rotate it so it's at this sort of angle. I think that looks pretty good. I want to make it so it looks like there's water droplets coming down and then falling off. So I think I need a little bit more than that. Rotate it, something like that. I think that is good. Cool. Alright, so now we're going to UV unwrap it and apply the texture. So go into the top view, press A to select everything, and click Project from View. Or you can just click Unwrap, it doesn't really matter. Let's set the scale, so go out of edit mode, press Ctrl A, set the scale, and then click Unwrap. Now let's open up this and see what our UV unwrapping looks like. That looks pretty good. I'm going to add in the texture, and so just click this little drop down menu and click the texture right there. Now we just gotta place it. Something like that. You know what, I'm gonna try project from view because I think that will be better. Rotate it 90 degrees. You can hold control and then it'll snap into increments. Scale it up. And then I think you're just gonna have to manually place it. So I'm gonna press SX and scale it along the X-axis. Place it right there, down a little bit. Try to get it as even as possible. Scale it along the X a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty good. G, move it. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be adding a transparent shader anyway, so if there's any little parts here sticking out, they'll disappear, so it doesn't matter too much. But just try to get it as close as possible. That's all that really matters. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to go into the node editor and apply some shaders and textures. So make sure you're on Cycles Render up here and then click New. I'm going to call this material Leaf and then press Enter. Okay, so now there's going to be a lot of mixed shaders and some textures applied to this, so just do your best to follow along. The first thing I'm going to do is add in a glossy shader. So go to Shader and then Glossy. Place that right here. Now we have to add a mix shader, so add a mix shader and put it into there. Then bring this over here and then you're going to duplicate this two times. So press Shift-D, place it, Shift-D, and place it right there. Now I'm going to add in a transparent shader. I'm going to go right here, transparent, and plug this into there. I'm going to duplicate this transparent shader, plug it right there, and then plug it in. There we go. Now this mix shader is going to get rid of any of the little parts here that are sticking out, and then they'll make them completely transparent. This shader is going to make the whole thing a little transparent, because if you hold a leaf up to the sky or anywhere where there's light, you can see through it a little bit. So this is going to be that shader. I'm going to set the factor to 0.2. I think that will be good. And then the factor for the glossy, controls the glossy. I'm going to set this one to 0.2 as well. You don't have to mess with this factor because we're going to be taking the alpha out of the image texture and plug it into there. So add in your image texture. So go to Texture, Image, right there. Plug it in and then click your image right there. So it should be applied. Let's see if it is. So go to Textured View. Yes, it's applied right there. You can see it. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take the alpha from this and plug it into the factor in this one. There we go. So now it's transparent. See, if you look up here, there's some blackness, but if I go into rendered view, wait a second, what? Oh, I see what I did wrong. We have to switch these around. This transparent shader is supposed to be in the top input and not the bottom. There we go. And now, as you can see, the black is gone. That's what we wanted. I was so confused, what the heck, Blender? I did this perfectly. No, make sure the transparent is in the top input of the factor. Okay, so now we're gonna add in some normals and make it have a little bit of bump. So press Shift A, add in a vector bump, place that right there. You can set the strength to about a 0.5 and then press Enter. Plug it into both of the normals. There we go. So that will give it some bump. But also I'm going to take the color out of the texture and plug it into the displacement in the material output. Right there, the displacement. And that will give it some really nice bump. Okay, so I think the material is done. I'm going to just go Shift Z to see how it looks. Nice, that's really cool. You can see some bump right there. I like that. That looks very nice. Alright, now close this window, and then we're going to do a little bit of lighting. I'm going to be adding a HDR, and this HDR you're probably not going to be able to find on the website, but you'll be able to find something similar. And it doesn't really matter what HDR you use because we're going to be setting the world to transparent. I just need it for some lighting. So click HDR and whichever one you really want. I'm going to be using 17. Alright, there we go. And then I'm just gonna, I think the strength is perfectly fine as it is. Okay, so now I want to add a little bit more lighting. I'm going to press Shift A and add in a plane. I'm gonna position it right above the tip of the leaf, right there. I'm gonna bring it up, rotate it a little bit, something like that. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And then I'm gonna add a emission shader for the material. Okay, so emission, set the strength to about 3, I think is good. White is perfectly fine. And now I'm going to add in the water droplets. So I'm just going to press Shift A, add in a UV sphere, and then I'm going to scale it along the Y, just like that. And I think that is perfectly fine. Let's add smooth shading to that so it makes it look smooth. Scale it down, and then place it on the leaf, wherever you want. It doesn't really matter, just somewhere on the leaf. I think that is good. Scale it down a little bit more maybe. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe a little bit further this way. And make sure it's on like a slope so it looks like it's gonna go down. I think I need to bring this down just a little bit. There we go, so it looks more like a slope. And then press Shift D on this, rotate it, and then I'm going to just grab the top in edit mode, turn on proportional editing, and scale it down. Make it a tip. Like that. Maybe scale it down a little bit more. There we go. Look at that. It's a water droplet. I think this one's a little too big. Scale that one down, and maybe this one up just a tad. Okay, for the material for this guy, we're just going to be using a glass plus a glossy. So click new. I'm going to call this water, and then I'm going to add it in. Delete the diffuse and then add in a glossy. All right, let's do glass first. Add in a glass, then add in a glossy, and then add in a mix right there. Plug this one into the top and this one into the bottom and set the factor to 0.2. You can bring the roughness all the way down. Let's see how that looks. Come on, preview, update. Oh wait, no, I didn't plug it in. There we go. Make sure you plug it in, and there you can see it. That looks pretty good. Maybe bring this back up a little bit. How does that look? The QRI, bring that down. Yeah, bring it down to 1.35. I think that's perfect. And then make sure this has the same one, and water right there. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate this leaf a couple of times and bring them down here. So go into third view, press Shift D, bring it down, and then scale it in. Make sure it's like placed somewhere over here, rotate it maybe. Just try to get variation. Shift D, bring it down, move it like that, rotate. Something right about there. Does that look, oh, those are too much. Bring that back up. Okay, and then you can go into edit mode and just kind of play around with some of the leaves to get a little bit of variation. You don't want them to look exactly the same, you know, so something like that is good. Maybe I'll select the middle one by holding Alt and right click, and then I will bring it up so it doesn't look exactly the same, and then I'll grab the tip and bring that up as well. Cool. How does that look? Let's go into rendered view by pressing Shift Z. Alright, come on. Nice, we got some good looking shadows. That's awesome. That's what I wanted. I think we can use one more leaf, and I might scale this one down just a little. Bring it in, press Shift D, and then down, and then maybe rotate it out. How does that look? Oh, it's clipping through. Make sure none of them clip through. Good. Awesome. All right, now I'm going to position the camera. I'm going to go something like this and then press Control Alt 0 and that will snap the camera. And also we're not going to need our background image, so you can just turn that off. Okay, so bring the camera up, rotate it like that, bring it out, something like that. I think these are all too big. Scale them down and then bring them forward. But make sure they're not clipping through. Like that. Cool. Maybe the camera rotate this way a little bit. How does that look? Let's see. Very cool. Let's add the background as transparent. So you can do that by coming over to the render panel, scrolling down to film, and then click transparency. And that will get rid of the background, and then you'll be able to see. Awesome. I think that's looking pretty cool. I like it, but I think it needs some more curve, especially in this one down here. So I'm going to grab this whole thing, yep, there we go, and bring it down some more. And then I'm just going to select, deselect that, and then select those and bring those down. There. Let's see how that looks. And then maybe scale it along the X. Make sure all these are set to smooth shading. There we go. Rotate it maybe. I think that's good. Maybe this can come up a little bit. You want to make it look natural, a natural curve. There we go, and then I'll have to reposition that guy. Good. Let's see how that looks again. Nice. And then I think I'm going to rotate you just up like this. There. Alright, so now once you've done that, you've placed all of your leaves. Let's go down to the sampling. Change these to 3, both of the clamp direct and indirect to 3. You can leave the render at 28. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go 200 samples. And then I'm going to click render. But make sure you save. I'm going to save it to my desktop. I'm just going to call it Leaf Tutorial. And then I'm going to click render. So this is probably going to take about 5 to 10 minutes, just depending on how fast your computer is. So I will be back once it is done. Alright, it was almost done, and from what I can see, it looks like these two look really flat. This one looks pretty good. It's got a nice curve, but these two right here look really flat. So I'm going to go and just fix those real quick. So Alt right click and then bring these down. Make sure like that, and then bring that one down so it doesn't clip through. There we go. And then same for this one. Let's Alt right click in the middle. There we go. And then bring it down. That's it. And then we can also Alt right click on this one and then Alt right click on that and then bring those up. That can help too. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Maybe we can also just kind of play around with that. Bring that up maybe. There we go. Nice. And then also I'm going to scale it along the X so it becomes just a little thinner. There we go. So now once you've done that, just render it one more time. Alright, it is done, and that looks pretty good. It's a little flat like up here, but I think the shadows and everything makes it look pretty good. So now we're going to go into Photoshop, and then we're going to just make the image pop, add some blur and some background and some color grading. It's going to be really cool. So save it by pressing F3. I'm just going to save it right here. I'm going to call it Leaf Tutorial Pre, and that just like for pre-image. Make sure it's set to PNG or it's not going to save the transparency. Now let's jump into Photoshop and do some color grading. Alright, now we're in Blender, and as you can see there is a little bit of transparency on this image, and I think it's a little too much. I might have to change the factor to 0.2, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go with it because I don't feel like rendering it again. Okay, so this is the background image that we're going to be using, so just press V for your move tool and then drag it into here. There we go. Let's zoom out and then press Ctrl T and scale it down and position it right in the middle. A little bit more. There we go. And then press Enter. Okay, and then bring it below. Now, it does not match at all. The colors, it just looks terrible right now. We're gonna fix that. So click on this layer, click here, and click on color balance. Make sure it is clipped right there, and then change it to something like that. I think is good. Maybe a little bit more. Try to get it to look like the scene. All right, that's good. Let's go to shadows. Bring the shadows up in the green, and yellow is up too. Then change it to highlights, do the same thing, but not so much. Look at that, that is looking good. I think that matches pretty nicely. I also want to add in a brightness contrast node, or layer, not a node. This is not Blender. Bring the contrast up and then bring the brightness down just a little bit. Something like that, that looks good. And then one more, we're gonna go for a hue saturation, make sure it's clipped, and bring the saturation down just a tiny bit. Yeah, something like that. There we go. So -8 is perfect. Awesome. Now right click, or just click on the layer 1. Let's go to filter, blur, and then Gaussian blur. Wait. Gaussian blur. And yeah, I think that is good right there. Maybe let's just go with 8 even. Then click OK. Nice. Alright, so now I'm going to make this into a group. So click on this layer, shift, click on this layer, and then group those together by pressing G. I'm just going to call this one main. There we go. Then Control J that, and then move it over here. Control T, right click, flip horizontally, and place it something like that. Scale it down, and place it in the corner. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to do the same thing, Control J, and then move it down here, just like this. There we go. Something like that. Scale it down maybe. Good. And then one more time over here. Flip horizontally again and place it. Something like that. Great. Alright, now that looks decent. It's not really, doesn't look that great. We're gonna add some blur to all of these. So this one right here, this one in the corner, make sure, yeah, let's add in a mask, and then we're just going to brush away this one right here. So click your brush tool, bring it up, make sure it's set to black, and then paint. There we go, and now it's deleted. Good. Click on the layer, and then let's go to filter, blur, blur gallery, field blur. There we go. And what field blur does is you can set specific spots on how much you want it to blur. So way in the back I want it really blurred, but like something right here I don't want it so much blurred. I think that is perfect. Look at that, that looks pretty good. So it's like a gradient of a blur. This was really blurred, this one's not so much. I think that looks awesome. Then we're going to do the same thing for this one. So is it this guy? Yeah, it's this guy. Click here, click on the layer, filter. We'll just do blur gallery. Yeah, that's perfectly fine right there. Then the last one right here, boom. And I think I'm just going to go blur Gaussian for this last one and make it, yeah, make it a little bit less. There we go, look at that. Cool. Alright, now the next thing I want to do is add in a little bit of a white spot on these water droplets so it makes it look more like water. So, bring it down, make sure it's set to white, click on this, and I'm just going to turn off. You don't have to do this because on my previous Photoshop thing I was using that, so I'm just going to change it off and then click right in the middle. Oh, wait, no, bring the hardness down just a little bit, something like that, and click. Maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, that looks good. Bring it up and click. Nice. I think that adds a little bit of touch. So if we go here, yeah, that looks better. It looks more like a glare off of light or something. Yeah, awesome. All right, now the last thing that we're going to be doing is adding a gradient to all the corners. This is going to make it a vignette sort of effect. So make sure it's set to this one right here, boom, and black, and then just go like this around all the corners. Really, really easy, and there we have it. Okay, that was pretty easy. Well, that's going to be it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Okay, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.